Manga artist Ichiro, tasked with supporting himself and his siblings Machi and Fumio after inheriting a small apartment building, faces increased workload due to the departure of his assistants. However, his editor, Masahiro, introduces him to a talented 19-year-old assistant named Shiori. Despite her self-taught background and young age, Shiori impresses Ichiro with her exceptional skills and instantly wins over Machi and Fumio. Shiori reveals that she only started reading her grandmother's manga collection at 18, which included Ichiro's main series, Alice and the Knight of Thorns. After a grueling all-nighter to meet a deadline, both Ichiro and Shiori fall asleep at their desks. Upon waking up, Ichiro notices a peculiar craft pen stuck in Shiori's back. Concerned for her well-being, he removes the pen, inadvertently transporting himself into an endless void. Shiori rescues him, and although initially upset that he touched her while she was asleep, she explains that the so-called pen was actually her stinger. By touching it, Ichiro becomes her fated husband, but Shiori insists that they must first fall in love for their union to be genuine, as she desires a true marriage. According to tradition, Shiori's parents should have chosen her husband, but she believes fate has selected Ichiro, although he remains skeptical. After an encounter with Chihiro, Ichiro's cousin, and a tenant in their apartment building, Shiori returns home. Ichiro falls unconscious due to a fever, prompting Shiori to hurry back and explain that they must stay close to each other or Ichiro's condition will deteriorate, possibly leading to his death. Ichiro becomes convinced of Shiori's sincerity when holding hands miraculously cures his fever. To facilitate their closeness, Shiori rents one of the apartments and she enlists the help of some of her fellow star people to investigate if their engagement can be dissolved. In need of essential supplies, Ichiro accompanies Shiori on a shopping trip. During their outing, Shiori reveals that a meteorite struck their island, introducing an alien bacteria that initially infected her grandmother and subsequently spread to all islanders. Through coexisting with this bacteria, they gained unique powers and adopted the name Star People. While two men flirt with Shiori, Ichiro intervenes and inadvertently injures her arm, resulting in his nose bleeding. Shiori blames herself, explaining that her pain or emotional distress will now have an impact on his physical well-being. She expresses regret about leaving her island, but Ichiro reassures her that it's okay and that he wants her to pursue happiness. He promises to be more cautious around her and learn how to be near her without causing harm, bringing a smile to Shiori's face. As part of his new learning process, Ichiro tests to see how far he can get from Shiori before becoming ill, discovering no effects within a few miles. As for contact, Shiori suggests acting out scenes from romantic manga. Ichiro becomes extremely flustered but suffers no ill effects from casual touching. Shiori wonders if she could find a second job within the safe radius of a few miles. Masahiro asks Ichiro to rewrite his latest story to include more romantic scenes, but he suddenly suffers from severe writer's block. Shiori decides to introduce herself to the other tenants, leaving them letters and gifts in their mailboxes. Former tenant and Ichiro's childhood friend Momoka, who is also married to Masahiro, visits Ichiro and his siblings. Shiori learns Momoka writes one of her favorite manga, Master of Lion Fist, and asks to work with her, but Momoka only draws on computers, which Shiori is unfamiliar with. Momoka offers her an old tablet to practice on. After Momoka leaves, Ichiro feels ill and realizes Shiori was jealous of his friendship with Momoka. Realizing she is jealous, Shiori deduces she must finally be in love with Ichiro. Following her revelation, Shiori asks to spend time alone. Ichiro has to cancel taking his siblings to the zoo due to rain. Due to Shiori's revelation, Ichiro cannot focus on making his manga more romantic. Shiori can't decide how to act around Ichiro, so she spends time with Machi and Fumio, but accidentally tears one of Machi's precious tarot cards Ichiro painted for her. Ichiro volunteers to make a new set, so Shiori goes to the library in the rain for a book on Machi's favorite fortune teller. When Shiori is gone, a while Ichiro goes to find her, and they enjoy a walk home. Shiori and Ichiro draw the new cards together and help the delighted Machi put on a fortune-telling performance. Ichiro discovers Machi's crystal ball is his old planetarium projector, which he switches on. Shiori joins him under the projected stars, and Ichiro tells her he still wants the engagement annulled. His rejection hurts Shiori so much bruises appear on Ichiro's body, until Ichiro then confesses that he loves her too and wants to date her properly before getting engaged. Shiori happily accepts, then passes out from excitement. Ichiro, his siblings, and Shiori finally go to the zoo. They let the kids enjoy seeing all the animals, but seeing Ichiro's hands occupied by his siblings, Shiori wishes for him to hold her own hand, but believes she is selfish by interfering in their family trip. However, Machi eventually discovers them, and they finally admit their relationship, which the kids accept immediately. Machi asks Shiori what she likes about Ichiro, and she wonders what Ichiro likes about her. She later gathers the courage, asks him to hold her hand, which he happily does, delighting her. Meanwhile, back on Shiori's island, her family worries for her well-being as they have not communicated with her since she left. Her mother Miyako worries the most, asking for any signal of Shiori be relayed to her. Back home, while Ichiro cleans the kitchen, a curious Shiori goes to ask him what he likes about her, but runs into Chihiro, nearly exposing their romance. She sees Ichiro asleep at a table, gently waking him, and asks him to allow her to touch his neck. He agrees and they become closer together. However, as she goes to sleep, Shiori realizes she forgot to ask him. Ichiro submits his new chapters and Masahiro is thrilled by the romantic scenes. Ichiro hopes to spend time with Shiori, but she is distracted by a job rejection from the artist Sano due to making a bad impression. To cheer her up, he takes her, Machi and Fumio, to a barbecue restaurant. Shiori reveals she is still learning to do as she pleases away from the restricted lifestyle she had growing up. Ichiro tries to be supportive but nervously muddles his words, leaving his meaning unclear. He returns to working straight away, worrying Shiori she upset him, though Ichiro is actually upset at himself for not being able to talk normally. He decides to write a letter but begins adding pictures, eventually turning his feelings into an explanatory manga. Ichiro worries about her reaction, but Shiori is moved to tears by the feelings expressed in the manga, and they become even closer. Sano later calls Ichiro to tell him that he was troubled on how to tell Ichiro that Shiori might be interested in him. Ichiro explains that Shiori is his girlfriend. Happy for his friend, Sano offers her a part-time job as her work was excellent. Having expressed their feelings, Ichiro and Shiori become awkward around each other. Ichiro, Chihiro, Machi, and Fumio plan to visit their father's grave. The children conspire to bring Shiori as well. Afterward, they picnic in the park where Chihiro confirms they are dating. Seeing them mourn, Shiori recalls the recent funeral of her grandmother, which by island tradition took place under the stars at night. The children return home with Chihiro, but Ichiro visits the grave again to introduce Shiori as his girlfriend and hopes they will stay together forever, giving Shiori dreams of marriage. Shiori develops fever, causing Ichiro to wonder if star people need different treatment from humans. After making her food, Shiori holds his hand until she falls asleep. Shiori recovers by morning and finds Ichiro accidentally fell asleep on her floor, meaning they shared a room all night. As he goes to leave, Shiori is compelled to hug him for the first time. They are almost caught by Machi and Fumio, whom Ichiro distracts with breakfast, amusing Shiori. Star people don't celebrate Christmas, so Shiori looks forward to her first with Ichiro. Sano, Chihiro, and Momoka join them for Christmas Eve celebrations where Shiori is delighted by their stories about Ichiro as a child. Shiori is unable to share stories about herself as they all include her being the star princess. Momoka finally gives Shiori her old tablet. Fumio goes to bed, but Shiori and Machi sleep over in Chihiro's room. Shiori confesses to being a princess, which has caused problems for Ichiro, but Chihiro and Machi understand her desire for privacy. Having overheard, Ichiro guiltily realizes he has still been hoping their fated marriage would be annulled. Deciding to do better, he invites Shiori on a real date on Christmas Day. Shiori's mother Miyako is angrily confused why Shiori hasn't contacted them yet. On the date, Shiori feels guilty. Ichiro still occasionally feels pain from their bond. Ichiro doesn't mind as he loves her, even asking her to keep dating him with the real goal of marrying. Shiori is so happy to share their first kiss. That night, they are both so happy about the kiss they can't sleep. Shiori receives a text from her mother. Miyako wants Shiori to return home. They visit a shrine for the new year where Shiori wins a family trip to Mei Fuji. Shiori ignores Miyako's calls during the trip. After his siblings fall asleep, Ichiro can tell Shiori is upset, so she admits she actually left the island without Miyako's permission. Ichiro will support whenever she chooses, making her feel better. She answers Miyako's next call but blurts out she has a boyfriend and Ichiro introduces himself. The shock makes Miyako end the call while Shiori can't stop laughing. Ichiro fears he has made things worse for Shiori. The islanders fear Shiori has been seduced by Akane, so Miyako decides to bring Shiori home herself. Ichiro's continued guilt upsets Shiori so much he suffers through their link, only this time he enters the infinite void again. After Shiori retrieves him, she is upset she can't even be mad at her mother without hurting Ichiro. Machi and Fumio buy them matching earrings. Shiori decides to settle things once and for all. Ichiro confirms even if their link has to be annulled to save his life, he would still like to marry her. They return home to find Shiori's parents and two other islanders already waiting for them. Miyako demands Shiori return to the island, but after seeing Ichiro realizes he is not quite the sleazy Kamen they assumed. They agree to a proper meeting in the morning. The meeting begins badly as Miyako is hypercritical and stubborn. leading to Shiori accidentally revealing Ichiro accidentally touched her stinger. Miyako is furious at their engagement, since Shiori is destined to be queen and Ichiro clearly unsuitable for her, so Shiori angrily leaves. Ichiro follows, explaining his strained relationship with his own mother, which he does not want Shiori to experience with Miyako. They return and agree to annul their engagement. Miyako believes she has won and is thrilled, but when Shiori still insists on staying to continue her manga career, Miyako threatens to stop supporting her financially. Ichiro stands up for Shiori and her potential as an artist, so Miyako agrees Shiori can stay a year, but she will be reducing her financial support to force Shiori to support herself. Her father Ken agrees to properly research annulling the engagement, but hints Shiori can always create manga from their island, making Ichiro think. Once they leave, Shiori is grateful she had Ichiro to help her. Machi and Fumio decide everything will work out if Ichiro just marries Shiori. The two islanders who accompany Shiori's parents, Mikado and Komaki, return to annul the engagement, which involves using forceps made from island meteorite, known as Yobi, to remove the stinger inside Ichiro. Mikado warns Ichiro his love might be caused by the stinger and disappear once it is removed. Komaki, who has long had a crush on Shiori, reveals a piece of Yobi, allowing Shiori to use her psychic powers again, but Shiori insists she will not go home. Shiori has bad dreams as she also fears Ichiro's love might disappear. Komaki hopes once the engagement is over, Shiori will return to the island and possibly choose him to be her husband. During the ceremony, Ichiro drinks island sake, causing the stinger to emerge from his brain. Shiori sadly grabs it, causing Ichiro to flash back all the reasons he loves her, but he is too late and the stinger is extracted. Ichiro feels their bond vanish, almost breaking his heart, but is relieved he still loves her. Shiori is tearfully relieved Ichiro need never be hurt by the bond again. An upset Komaki is dragged away by Mikado, who is also relieved their love survived the annulment. Ichiro asks Shiori on a date. Wanting it to be special, Shiori goes shopping with Chihiro for a more colorful outfit. Shigeru ends up admitting she's in love with Ichiro but knows it is impossible due to them being cousins. Ichiro asks Sano for date advice, ending up with new clothes and haircut. On the date, they find their attraction to each other is more intense. During ice skating, Shiori's determination to hold hands is hindered by Ichiro falling over, but after a heart-to-heart over their feelings on the annulment, they manage to hold hands. The next day, Ichiro realizes with New Year and the hot spring trip, they are over budget for the month. This coincides with Machi's field trip, so she decides not to even tell Ichiro as he can't afford it. She also declines playing with her friends to Fumio won't be alone. Shiori is worried and Ichiro realizes what is happening when Machi uncharacteristically starts crying, revealing everything they have been missing out on due to money or Ichiro's work schedule. Shiori immediately arranges an impromptu firework festival with friends in the garden to make up for it. Ichiro can't believe how lucky he was to meet her. Shiori decides once she has become self-sufficient as a manga artist, she will ask Ichiro to marry her.